The bustling mall echoed with laughter and chatter, a typical Saturday afternoon. But in an instant, everything changed. A security guard, his face twisted with anger, shoved a tall, lanky teenager to the ground. The boy's familiar features sent shockwaves through the crowd. As onlookers gasped, all eyes turned to the fallen figure. It was Barron Trump, the former president's son. What happened next left everyone in tears and changed the course of that ordinary day forever. The mall buzzed with activity, a typical Saturday afternoon filled with the chatter of shoppers and the soft background music drifting from store speakers. Families wandered from shop to shop, teenagers gathered in giggling groups, and elderly couples strolled hand in hand. The air conditioning hummed, creating a comfortable oasis from the summer heat outside. Amidst this everyday scene, a tall, lanky figure moved through the crowd. Barron Trump, now in his late teens, had grown into his height, his once boyish features maturing into those of a young man. Dressed in simple jeans and a plain t-shirt, he blended seamlessly into the sea of shoppers, just another face in the crowd. As Barron wandered past the food court, a commotion erupted nearby. Heads turned, conversations paused, and curious onlookers began to gather. In the center of the growing crowd, a security guard stood with his arms crossed, his face set in a scowl. His voice, loud and aggressive, cut through the mall's ambient noise. "You can't loiter here! Move along!" The guard barked, his eyes fixed on Barron. Confusion flashed across Barron's face as he tried to explain himself. "I'm sorry, I was just waiting for a friend." "I didn't mean to cause any trouble," he said, his voice calm but tinged with uncertainty. The guard, unmoved by Barron's explanation, took a step forward. His body language was tense, his movements sharp and intimidating. Without warning, he reached out and shoved Barron hard, sending the young man stumbling backward. Time seemed to slow as Barron lost his balance. He fell, his long limbs sprawling across the polished mall floor. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers as recognition dawned. This wasn't just any teenager. It was Barron Trump, son of a former president. For a moment, the mall fell silent. The only sound was the distant echo of music and the hum of the air conditioning. All eyes were on Barron as he slowly pushed himself up from the floor. His movements were deliberate, almost graceful, as he rose to his full height. What happened next left the crowd in awe. Instead of anger or indignation, Barron's face was a mask of calm. His eyes, clear and steady, met those of the security guard. There was no trace of the fury or entitlement one might expect from someone of his status. Instead, a quiet dignity radiated from him, filling the space between him and the now uncertain guard. The air crackled with tension as onlookers held their breath, waiting to see what would unfold. Would there be an outburst, a demand to speak to the manager, a threat of lawsuits and dire consequences? The air in the mall crackled with tension as all eyes turned to Barron Trump. In that moment, the young man stood at a crossroads. His life in the public eye had prepared him for scrutiny, but nothing could have readied him for this sudden, hostile confrontation. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting to see how the son of a former president would react to such a blatant act of aggression. The security guard, his face a mix of shock and dawning horror, took a step back. He had clearly recognized Barron now, and the realization of what he'd done was sinking in. His eyes darted around, searching for an escape from the situation he'd created. But there was nowhere to run from the sea of smartphone cameras and accusatory stares. Barron slowly rose to his feet, brushing off his clothes with a calm that seemed at odds with the chaos around him. His eyes, a striking blue that mirrored his father's, locked onto the security guards. In that moment, something passed between them, a flicker of understanding, perhaps, or a shared vulnerability. The young Trump opened his mouth to speak, and the entire mall seemed to lean in, straining to hear. What came out was not the angry tirade or threats of legal action that many expected. Instead, Barron's voice was soft but steady, carrying easily through the hushed space. "I understand you were just trying to do your job," he said, his words carefully measured. "It's okay. I forgive you." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. The security guard's face transformed, defensiveness melting into disbelief. He stammered, struggling to find words in the face of such unexpected grace. Barron didn't wait for a response. He extended his hand, palm open, offering peace instead of retribution. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 speeches. The guard hesitated for a moment, then reached out to clasp Barron's hand. Their handshake was firm, a bridge across the chasm that had opened between them just moments ago. As their hands parted, the silence broke. Murmurs of astonishment swept through the crowd. An elderly woman in the front dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. A teenage boy lowered his phone, the desire to capture the moment on video forgotten in the face of its raw humanity. The security guard, still visibly shaken, found his voice at last. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Trump. I shouldn't have." Barron nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "We all make mistakes," he said. "What matters is how we make them right." His words seemed to release something in the atmosphere. The tension that had gripped them all began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of wonder. People turned to their neighbors, sharing looks of amazement and wiping away tears. A young girl tugged on her mother's sleeve, her voice carrying clearly in the quieted space. "Mommy, why is everyone crying?" The mother knelt down, her eyes never leaving the scene before her. "Because sometimes, sweetie, kindness can be the most powerful thing in the world." As the echoes of Barron's compassionate words faded, an unseen wave began to build. In the digital realm, a storm was brewing, one that would challenge America's perceptions of privilege, prejudice, and the power of compassion. Within hours, shaky cell phone footage of the incident flooded social media platforms. The video, capturing Barron's graceful response to the security guard's aggression, spread like wildfire. Hashtags like Nas Barron's bravery and Mas Mall moment trended nationwide, igniting a fierce online debate. Comment sections exploded with conflicting opinions. "This is what true class looks like," wrote one user, garnering thousands of likes. Another countered, "It's easy to forgive when you're born with a silver spoon." The incident touched a nerve, forcing people to confront their own biases and assumptions. As the video's view count soared into the millions, mainstream media outlets picked up the story. Cable news channels ran endless loops of the footage, inviting pundits to dissect every nuance of the interaction. Political commentators from both sides of the aisle weighed in, each interpreting the event through their own ideological lens. Dr. Samantha Reeves, a renowned psychologist specializing in conflict resolution, appeared on several news programs to offer her perspective. "What we witnessed was a remarkable display of emotional intelligence," she explained. "In high-stress situations, our instinct is often to react defensively. Barron's ability to respond with empathy and forgiveness is not just admirable, it's a powerful example of how we can diffuse tense situations and build bridges." Meanwhile, the mall at the center of the controversy found itself under intense scrutiny. As pressure mounted, they issued a public statement. "We are deeply concerned by the events that transpired and have launched a full investigation. Our security personnel undergo rigorous training, and we are committed to ensuring that all visitors are treated with respect and dignity." The security guard, suddenly thrust into the national spotlight, grappled with the consequences of his actions. Friends reported that he was considering resigning, overwhelmed by the attention and guilt. His story became a focal point for discussions about snap judgments, implicit bias, and the need for better training in customer-facing roles. Public figures from across the political spectrum felt compelled to comment on the incident. A prominent civil rights leader praised Barron's response, calling it a masterclass in turning the other cheek. A conservative talk show host used the moment to criticize what he called the rush to judgment in our society. As the days passed, the incident evolved from a viral moment into something more profound, a catalyst for a national conversation on empathy, understanding, and the complexities of privilege. Schools incorporated the video into lessons on conflict resolution. Workplace seminars used it as a case study in de-escalation techniques. In coffee shops, at dinner tables, and in online forums, people shared their own stories of forgiveness and discussed the challenges of responding to aggression with kindness. The incident became a touchstone, a shared reference point for discussing larger issues of social justice and human dignity. As the nation grappled with the aftermath of that fateful mall encounter, Barron Trump and the security guard retreated from the public eye. Barron found solace in his room at Mar-a-Lago, his mind replaying the incident. In his journal, he wrote, "Today, I felt what it's like to be judged unfairly. It hurts more than I could have imagined." Across town, the security guard sat in his modest apartment, head in his hands. Family photos adorned the walls, a stark reminder of those who depended on his now uncertain income. His phone buzzed with messages from colleagues, some supportive, others disappointed. At the Trump residence, Melania hugged her son, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Donald paced the room, his face a storm of anger and concern. "We'll make this right," he promised, his voice uncharacteristically soft. Both Barron and the guard found themselves on parallel journeys of introspection. Barron, despite his privileged upbringing, had never felt more vulnerable. The incident had stripped away the protective layers of his family name, leaving him exposed to the harsh realities of prejudice and snap judgments. As days turned into weeks, the ripple effects continued. At Barron's school, whispers followed him through the hallways. Some peers looked at him with newfound respect, while others made snide remarks about privilege. The mall implemented sweeping changes. Security staff underwent intensive training on implicit bias and de-escalation techniques. The guard, though suspended, was invited to participate in these sessions. Dr. Elena Martinez, a renowned psychologist, appeared on a popular morning show. "What we witnessed was a masterclass in emotional regulation," she explained. "It's not about suppressing emotions, but about channeling them constructively." As weeks passed, both Barron and the guard emerged changed. Inspired by the support he received, Barron began working with youth organizations promoting empathy across social divides. The guard, humbled by his experience, became an advocate for reform in security practices, sharing his story as a call to action. In the quiet corner of a local coffee shop, two figures sat across from each other, the weight of their shared history hanging in the air between them. Barron Trump and the security guard from that fateful day at the mall had agreed to meet, away from the prying eyes of the public and the relentless buzz of social media. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension that initially surrounded their table. As they settled into their seats, an awkward silence stretched between them. Barron, now more composed than ever, broke the ice with a gentle smile. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. The guard, visibly nervous, nodded and cleared his throat. I can't begin to express how sorry I am," the guard began, his voice thick with emotion. "What I did that day was inexcusable, and I've spent every moment since then regretting my actions." His eyes, filled with remorse, met Barron's steady gaze. Barron listened intently, his empathy evident in the way he leaned forward, giving the guard his full attention. "I appreciate your apology," he responded thoughtfully. "Can you tell me more about what was going through your mind that day?" As the conversation unfolded, the initial awkwardness gave way to a genuine dialogue. The guard shared his struggles with job stress and personal issues that had clouded his judgment. Barron, in turn, opened up about the challenges of growing up in the public eye and the constant scrutiny he faced. Their discussion naturally turned to the broader issues of snap judgments and the power of second chances. "I never imagined how much that moment would change my life," the guard confessed. "It's made me reevaluate everything I thought I knew about people and my role in society." Barron nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. "It's been eye-opening for me too," he admitted. "I've realized how important it is to look beyond surface judgments and try to understand where others are coming from." As their coffee cups emptied, the conversation shifted to their hopes for the future. The guard spoke of his newfound commitment to advocating for better training and mental health support in the security industry. Barron shared his vision for youth programs that promote empathy and understanding across social divides. "I believe we can create a more compassionate society," Barron said, his eyes bright with determination. "It starts with conversations like this one, where we're willing to be vulnerable and really listen to each other." The guard nodded, a mix of admiration and gratitude on his face. Your forgiveness has given me a second chance, he said softly. I promise to pay it forward. As they stood to leave, they shook hands, this time with a newfound respect and understanding. Though their meeting was private, its impact rippled outward, becoming a symbol of reconciliation and personal growth in a world often divided by misunderstanding and judgment. As the dust settled from Barron's encounter with the security guard, something unexpected began to stir. What started as a single act of forgiveness in a bustling mall was about to ignite a spark that would spread across the nation. No one could have predicted the groundswell of compassion that was about to unfold. Social media platforms buzzed with activity as number Barron's bravery and number mall moment continued to trend. But this time, it wasn't just about sharing a viral video. People began posting their own stories of forgiveness, each one a testament to the power of human connection. A teenager in Michigan shared how she reconciled with a former bully. An elderly man in Florida recounted making amends with his estranged son after years of silence. These personal narratives touched hearts and inspired others to seek reconciliation in their own lives. As the movement gained momentum, schools across the country started incorporating lessons on empathy and conflict resolution into their curricula. In a classroom in Seattle, students role-played scenarios of misunderstanding and practiced finding common ground. A high school in Atlanta initiated a Forgiveness Friday program, where students and faculty shared stories of personal growth and healing. Public figures, sensing the shifting tide, began to open up about their own experiences with forgiveness. A popular musician revealed how he mended his relationship with a former bandmate after years of bitter rivalry. A retired athlete spoke about forgiving the coach, who had once doubted his abilities, crediting that moment of grace for his eventual success. However, the movement wasn't without its critics. Some argued that it oversimplified complex social issues, reducing systemic problems to individual acts of kindness. Others worried that emphasizing forgiveness might inadvertently downplay the importance of accountability. These voices of concern pushed the movement to evolve, encouraging deeper conversations about the balance between personal healing and social justice. Communities across the country organized events to bring people from different backgrounds together. In a small town in Iowa, a dinner of understanding saw conservatives and liberals breaking bread side by side, engaging in respectful dialogue about their differing viewpoints. A neighborhood in Brooklyn hosted a block party where residents shared cultural traditions, fostering a sense of unity amid diversity. Psychologists began studying the long-term effects of practicing forgiveness in daily life. Early results suggested promising benefits for mental health and social cohesion. Dr. Rachel Chen, a leading researcher in the field, noted, "We're seeing a significant reduction in stress levels and an increase in overall life satisfaction among those who regularly practice forgiveness." As the movement matured, it faced the challenge of maintaining momentum. The initial surge of enthusiasm began to wane, and organizers grappled with how to create lasting change. They shifted focus towards sustainable education and community-building initiatives, recognizing that true transformation would require ongoing effort and dedication. A year after the incident, Barron's act of forgiveness had sparked unexpected change. Now a college freshman, he sat in his dorm room, surrounded by textbooks and photos of his new friends. The weight of his unexpected legacy was evident in the thoughtful furrow of his brow. "Sometimes I feel overwhelmed," Barron confided to his roommate. "But then I remember that day, and I know I have to keep living up to it." The security guard found a new purpose, speaking at high schools. "I made a mistake," he'd say, his voice thick with emotion, "but forgiveness gave me a second chance. We all have that power." The Urban Safety Institute reported a 15% decrease in public confrontations. Dr. Emily Lawson explained, "We're seeing people pause before reacting, considering their words and actions more carefully." The mall transformed into a place of reflection. A small plaque marked the spot where compassion bloomed. Visitors left notes of inspiration, their words a testament to the enduring power of kindness. Barron's mother spoke publicly for the first time. Seeing Barron stand tall that day, it showed us the true strength of gentleness, she said, her eyes glistening. Dr. Marcus Chen of Stanford University observed, this single act is rewriting our understanding of social influence. Inspired by Barron, a group of Michigan students started a kindness challenge. In Florida, a community center launched the Barron Initiative, offering free conflict resolution classes. Barron's quiet strength continued to touch lives, proving that a single moment of compassion could indeed change the world. Barron Trump's journey from a privileged background to an unexpected beacon of compassion has reshaped our understanding of true strength. His quiet response to injustice in that mall became more than just a viral moment. It sparked a nationwide reflection on the power of empathy. As the dust settled, communities across America found themselves grappling with a simple yet profound question. How might our own small acts of kindness change the world? In the months that followed, stories of reconciliation and forgiveness began to surface. From schoolyards to boardrooms, people were inspired to reach out, to listen, and to understand. The Dinner of Understanding in Iowa and Brooklyn's Cultural Block Party showed that even in these divided times, there's an appetite for connection. As Dr. Rachel Chen's research suggests, the benefits of forgiveness extend beyond the moment, potentially reshaping our mental health and social fabric. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of Barron's Act lies in its simplicity. It reminds us that heroism doesn't always wear a cape or make headlines. Sometimes it's found in a gentle word, an extended hand, or a moment of grace when it's least expected. As we move forward, carrying the lessons of that day in the mall, we're left to wonder, what small act of kindness might we perform today that could change someone's world tomorrow?